And that's honestly what I think is probably one of the best things about this particular smoker. But honestly, I'm not really sure if that's such a big hang up about a product like this. So, I mean, would I buy another one in 2026? Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Life of Barney, where we talk about barbecue, backyard life, dad life, and everything in between. And today, I'm giving you the most in-depth 7-year review of the Weber Smokey Mountain. Roll the intro. I've had my Weber Smokey Mountain for 7 years now. There it is. For 7 years now. And I have enjoyed using it. It works quite nicely. And I'm going to talk about some different things about what's gone on over the last 7 years in using this particular smoker. But first, I want to give you guys a little tour of the outside and the inside to show you what it looks like after 7 years of use. Now, there's some things you need to understand. Now, you OGs who have been following me and subscribed for a long time, you know that I treat my barbecues very poorly. Okay? They are outside all year long. I do not usually cover my barbecues. Now, my gas grill, 50% of the time the cover's on. The other 50% I forget to put it back on. I got rid of the cover for my Weber Smokey Mountain about 1 month in because I realized it wasn't waterproof, and all it did was just seal in moisture and everything like that anytime it rained. So I didn't want my smoker to be perpetually soaked and tarped in a wet cover. This thing has been outside 99% of the time over the last 9 years, all year long. Spring, summer, fall, winter. All right, so let's take a look at the outside and see how it's held up over these last 7 years. All right, Smokey Mountain, I hope you're ready for your close-up. Take a look at the lid. Nothing but some dirt. Nothing but some dirt. You may get a little discoloration around the thermometer. Now, I customized mine. I put the 4-inch River Country thermometer on. You don't have to. There's nothing really wrong with the thermometer it comes with, but I liked the bigger one. I really should have gone with the 5-inch because I like to look out the window for a quick temp check if I'm not using my wireless thermometer. And with the little one that comes with it, you can't see it. You have to be right up in front of it to see where the dial is. So there's just a little discoloration, and that's probably because I have to tighten up the connection where the thermometer is. So a little moisture comes down, but I bet you I could wipe that off with a sponge, and it would be just as dark and shiny as it was. I did try to put a Bloomer's Family Farm sticker on there at one point. Realized that was a bad idea. The only bit of rust that I've found, at least on the lid, is on the fastener for the top vent. And I don't even close this unless I'm going for really, really low temperatures. So even in harsh weather, this thing's still open, exposed to the elements, rain falling in there, snow going in. The handle's very sturdy. I think in 7 years, I've only had to pull out the screwdriver to tighten this once. Yeah, one time. If we look down at the main body section, you'll see the fasteners do start to become tarnished, but the body itself is still in absolutely fantastic condition. You can see on the bottom where I've scratched it a few times, putting the midsection back on, there has been some rust and discoloration. But that's not just from being outside. That's from me banging the middle section on the bottom when I go to put it back on. If we look at the door's held up pretty nicely. It's been hit by some tennis balls and soccer balls when the kids are playing outside or throwing the ball for the dog and having a bad throw and it hits. So it does dent a little easy, but I mean, I just took a little hammer and a couple taps and straightened it out. But otherwise, the only discoloration is really from using it as a smoker. It still closes nicely. I have done a little bending just to get a bit nicer of a seal. And the legs are still in great condition. It's just from when I've been using the weed whacker and it blows grass and bits of dirt up on the bottom, but otherwise it's fine. But in all reality, I know you guys didn't really tune in here just to take a look at the outside. You want to know what the guts look like after 7 years of abuse. So I'm going to open this thing up and show you. As I said, I do abuse my barbecues. I don't treat them the most nicely, but the fact this thing has lasted 7 years and it's going strong with how much I've used it should be a testament to the product. You guys get in here and take a look at this. Here's one grate. There is definitely some discoloration. Two things about this. All right. Some of the discoloration is from age. Some of it is just because I don't clean the grate until I am about to use the smoker the next time. So all the food that's staying on the grates is just tarnishing and eating away and corroding the metal in between cooks. There we go. So you can see now all of this brushes away super easily with some steel wool, cleans it right up. And otherwise I just use my barbecue brush. It will turn black from usage because it is a smoker, so that is to be expected. However, after 7 years, kind of hard to see, but there isn't really that much flex. No more than I would expect from a grill of this gauge of grate. The grates sit on these tabs here. Now, I've seen guys that have had one's longer than me. My dad had one for a very long time as well. These do start to get a little flimsy, but it does take a long time. I was using it for grilling, which is why you'll see the charcoal grate is actually up here and not at the bottom. I believe Weber's official stance is that the Smoky Mountain should not be used for grilling, mainly because it wasn't designed for that, but it is absolutely possible. These tabs down here, if you guys can see, let me bring you in here. The water pan tabs, mine are just starting to get a little flimsy after 7 years of use. But even with the water pan fully filled with water and all that extra weight, these things still hold it with no problem at all. And then the top lip is where the bottom grate sits. And it holds the bottom grate loaded up with meat, no problem. Looking at the bottom section, you can see, yes, is it dirty? Is it a little wet? Yeah, because we just had some rain. And I come out here once a week and make sure I dump out all the water that sits in there, so that it doesn't get gross. Now, you could buy yourself perhaps a weatherproof and waterproof cover for your Weber Smokey Mountain. I didn't. You know the reasons why. I can't be bothered to do it. All right, I do have some leftover charcoal in here from the last time I used it, but the point I want to show is the grate where the charcoal goes, because of consistent exposure to high heat from the charcoal when it's ignited and burning away, it does have quite a bend in it and has gained quite a bit of flex as a result. It does still, however, fit in the bottom, no problem, very easy to insert. The ring, that's all it is. It just holds your charcoal in place. Yes, it's become tarnished from getting wet. It's corroded. It's rusty. It's dirty. But it does the job of holding the charcoal in place. And not once have I ever thought it's going to fall apart or snap or break or have a sharp edge and cut me or anything ridiculous like that. This is the last piece to look at here. The water pan. Sometimes I use it, sometimes I don't. And if you want to see when I do and don't, you can watch some of my other videos where I actually give recipes and show myself using the Weber Smokey Mountain. The easiest way to describe this, if you're considering buying it, is that with the water pan in place, the heat is deflected off of the curve and then comes up to the grills up the sides of the smoker instead of directly against the bottom of the meat that's on your grills, essentially allowing you to cook with indirect heat or over direct heat. It's very easy to clean. I have used it while it was empty before, and it leaves you with a bunch of char and nasty looking bits in the bottom, which can be scrubbed out. I filled it up with water. I have used it with sand. I have filled it with tin foil and left it that way as well. It just depends on what your level of effort is and how you're willing to clean it. Water is definitely the easiest. Now that we've talked about the anatomy of the Weber Smokey Mountain, why don't we talk about the ease of operation? If you're considering getting this and you haven't fully done all of your research, something you need to understand is the Weber Smokey Mountain is not exactly a set it and forget it smoker. Is it very easy to use? Yes, it is very easy to use. Can you sort of set it and forget it? Yeah, once you get the temp dialed in, you can walk away for a few hours fully confident that it's going to maintain the temperature. But it works through a convective process using the vents at the bottom, and how much you open or close the vents at the bottom dictate how much oxygen will pass over the coals at the bottom where all the charcoal is, which dictates how much heat they produce or how much energy they output. Okay, it's not like, for example, a Traeger or any of the other pellet smokers out there, or natural gas smokers, or electric smokers, where you just flip a switch, click a few buttons for time and temperature, and come back 8 hours later. You can't do that with a Weber Smokey Mountain. Because you're using charcoal as your fuel source, what ends up happening is all it takes is a little bit of a windy day that pushes extra oxygen into the Weber Smokey Mountain. Your temperature will rise. All it takes is a cold winter day where the air is more dense and there is more oxygen because of the air being that much colder passing over. Not only will the smoker be at a colder temperature because of the ambient temperature of the air, the smoker will go through more charcoal as a result with very minimal increase in heat. So there's some nuance, not just to the using the vents, but the time of year that you use it. I do have videos on my channel. Just subscribe. They'll start showing up in your feed and recommending ways in which you can use your Weber Smokey Mountain. Now, that's enough about me talking about it. Let's get down here and take a look at these vents so I can show you how exactly they work. I think pretty much anybody who owns a Weber Smokey Mountain will tell you the easiest thing to do with the bottom vents for general smoking, where you're aiming for that 250 to 275 temperature, is to open the vents 1/3. The easiest thing you can do is just grab a regular pencil, stick it in the vent, and close the vent on the pencil. That's about how open all three, 1, 2, and 3, that's how open each one of those 3 vents at the bottom should be if you're aiming for that 250 to 275 degree Fahrenheit smoking temperature. Now, as I just finished saying, that all depends on what the weather outside is, how windy it is. Have you adjusted the door on the front of the barbecue to help seal the air? Is your lid firmly on, or did you accidentally close it slightly ajar? There's all kinds of variables with this, but don't let that distract you or deter you from getting a Weber Smokey Mountain. It just means it's a much more hands-on smoking experience. Don't let some of these things deter you from getting a Weber Smokey Mountain. I'm only highlighting them and showing that using a Weber Smokey Mountain is a more hands-on experience compared to some of the other true set it and forget it smokers that you can click a couple buttons, flip the switch to turn it on, and come back 8 hours later. Now, on that topic, let's talk about fuel management on the Weber Smokey Mountain. There is a video that I posted many years ago that compares lump charcoal and briquettes. And you'll see in some of my videos, I use lump charcoal and I use briquettes. Those are all old videos from 5 and 6 years ago. And I'll tell you the update now, guys. I do not use briquettes anymore, ever. You have to consider that despite the fact briquettes are way easier to use because they are all, generally speaking, a uniform size and therefore are supposed to burn in a uniform manner, giving you way more predictable heat output, the companies that make them have to use different binding agents in order to hold the charcoal together in that lump, that square shape or that circular shape, depending on the company and what their claim to fame is for the shape of their charcoal. I only use lump charcoal now. I find the flavor is, you still get that nice charcoal smoked flavor or charcoal grilled, because I do set it up for grilling sometimes. I think it tastes cleaner, I guess, is the best way to put it. You get that actual charcoal taste instead of this, just a slight tinge that you get with the briquettes. I would recommend, if you're going to get a Weber Smokey Mountain, don't bother with briquettes. Definitely don't bother with the gas station charcoal. Get yourself some lump. I use Royal Oak lump charcoal, and you'll see that in some of my other videos. Please feel free, hit the subscribe button, and you'll see in a few days more of my barbecue videos will start to pop up in your feed, or you can go right to my channel and scroll down. You'll see them there. And I've tried Jealous Devil. There are other great brands of lump charcoal that give you great consistent size and heat output as well. So do consider that. Now in Canada, our bags of charcoal, the 18-pound bags of lump charcoal, are getting upwards of $27, $28, $29 for Royal Oak, and $40 and up for things like Jealous Devil. I think it's almost up to there. And there are other brands that are even more expensive than that. So you have to be prepared that if you're going to go with a charcoal-based smoker, specifically the Weber Smokey Mountain, you do have to put some money into buying charcoal. Let's talk about the learning curve for a minute. The Weber Smokey Mountain is pretty easy to use. As I told you guys how to set the vents, and the top vent is almost always left open 100% of the time. Now you can do all kinds of Googling and YouTubing, and everyone's going to have a different opinion, and you know what they say about people's opinions. I don't really care what anybody else says. But the point is, it's about as easy to get up to 250, 275 range as most other smokers. Now let's talk about how you get there in the first place. You have to have the Weber Smokey Mountain fully disassembled when you start adding the charcoal and when you get it lit. Here, why don't you come over and take a look? I'll explain it to you. The true learning curve when using the Weber Smokey Mountain is making sure you have the right amount of charcoal lit before you assemble it. When you assemble the Weber Smokey Mountain, you now start forcing all the oxygen to come in through the 3 vents, 1, 2, and 3 over there. Which means if you don't have enough charcoal lit to begin with, it'll never be hot enough to pull in enough oxygen to maintain that 250 to 275 temperature. If you want to get yourself a Weber Smokey Mountain and you go and buy one, look up on YouTube or Google what's called the Minion method, okay? I like to use a charcoal chimney when I get my smoker going. And all I do is I fill it up right to the top. But first you put your little fire starter at the bottom there, or you put some newspaper, and you can light it from underneath. Once these are all glowing hot, this amount of charcoal can be dumped into the middle of the rest of your charcoal, and it should be, most of the time, the right amount of lit charcoal to get you up to that 250, 275 mark. Just dump it in, assemble your Weber Smokey Mountain right away. If you can get the hang of this, then you're off to the races on how to use the Weber Smokey Mountain. That it was, for me anyway, in the first 6 months, the biggest part of the learning curve. Do I have enough charcoal lit? I know I'm spending a lot of time talking about it, but a lot of people, they assemble it. They get the charcoal going, they assemble it, and then they can't get past 150 degrees Fahrenheit because they didn't have enough charcoal lit in the first place. And I've helped a lot of people through this over the years. All right, there's two more things I'd like to talk about. One is, how do you clean it and what should you expect to see on the inside of it? It's a smoker, not just a regular barbecue. The second thing we'll talk about, and it'll be the last topic, is the Weber Smokey Mountain right for you? And we'll talk about some pros and cons and what you might be able to live with and what might be very frustrating. This is the main body section of the Weber Smokey Mountain. As far as any visible signs of use go, this is where you will find the most, other than the grates, because that's where the food is touching. You can see that there is a layer of soot on the inside. Most of this is from the buildup of moisture on the inside while you're using it. The moisture that is sweating and steaming off of your food, or moisture that's coming from the water pan while in use. The fact that the smoke is coming off the charcoal is getting this particulate stuck to the sides. Nothing to worry about. Totally normal, and I will say it does smell kind of nice. In 7 years, I have cleaned my Weber Smokey Mountain once. Now, I cleaned it because I went a few months without using it. We had a lot of rain and there was a lot of water sitting on the inside. I don't need to tell you what happens when water's sitting in a hot, humid environment. What happened to the inside of my Weber Smokey Mountain? It required a complete top-to-bottom sanitization and was working just fine after that. Now let's talk about some pros and cons of using it. One thing that I found tough when my kids were first born, or when Evelyn was born, our first child, it was a little bit difficult to start using the Weber Smokey Mountain because with different family events, going here, going there, leaving the house, playing with the kids, the Weber Smokey Mountain is not a true set it and forget it smoker. You can walk away for a few hours near the beginning, go run some errands, run into town. Maybe you already live in town. I live in a small town, but go to the grocery store, do whatever it is you have to do, but you better come back within about 3 hours and take a look, because depending on the weather of the day, the wind, how easily the air is flowing through, and how loaded up the grills you have, which affects your airflow. You may have to adjust the vents once the charcoal hits its sweet spot in rate of combustion and heat output. The other thing is, you do run out of charcoal about halfway through a cook, 3/4 of the way through a cook, especially if you're doing a brisket, and that's going to take, say, maybe a 12-hour total time, or even longer if you're doing something overnight. So there is a little more effort required in your planning, and you do have to give it just a little bit more attention than a pellet smoker, other than refilling the hopper on a pellet smoker, where you flip the switch, you set the temperature, and you walk away. And you come back when the alarm goes off. So if you are looking for a hands-off experience, the Weber Smokey Mountain is not for you. If you're looking for a much more involved and fun experience, and to be honest, something that will likely impress a lot of your other friends, which I've found, a lot of people say, oh wow, what do you have, a Traeger or some kind of pellet smoker or natural gas smoker? No, I just have a piece of rounded out metal that uses charcoal and some vents. That's it. No electronics. I use a Weber Smokey Mountain. A lot of people seem to be particularly impressed by that. And also, not that you're doing it to impress people, but it's a fun conversation topic as well. If you're okay with being a little more hands-on and having to be a little bit more attentive, this is definitely the smoker for you. I've talked to guys that have Big Green Eggs that are charcoal based. I've talked to other people who have other, not knockoff, but similar to a bullet smoker style. And everybody says their favorite is the Weber Smokey Mountain, hands down. So that's the people I've talked to anyway, and everybody's got opinions, like I said before. So if you're okay with that, then you know what? Spend the money. Get yourself one. As we close out the video, I just want to share, some personal thoughts that are maybe a little less structured and a little less unbiased, because I am trying to be unbiased and just give you the facts of what's worked for me and what hasn't, because the Weber Smokey Mountain's not for everybody. But I do like that if you need new grills, you can go on the Weber website and you can buy replacement grills for the Weber Smokey Mountain. Last I checked, they weren't that expensive, meaning if you need to do a repair or replacement of internal parts, it's still economical. That's one of the biggest problems I find with barbecues now, that you can run them into the ground and maybe the body is really good, but you just have to replace maybe some burners on a gas grill or something like that. And when you start adding up all the parts, it's cheaper to just buy a new barbecue. But that's not necessarily the case with the Weber Smokey Mountain. That's something I like. Another fun story is these things are pretty damage resistant, in my opinion. Anyway, my experience. I actually know a guy, he was on the highway. He had this in a trailer, and I guess something snapped in the trailer or whatever. And the lid of his Weber Smokey Mountain, which was down below, I guess they hit a bump or whatever. It flew out of the trailer onto the highway and it got run over by a Hummer. Nobody got hurt. There was no damage to any vehicles or anything. This thing just bounced around and scraped underneath the vehicle. And when everybody got off on the shoulder, pulled it out, the guy actually took it back to his house. The handle had broken off. He just took a piece of doweling, put a couple screws in and made a doweling handle for himself. He took a 2x4 and a hammer and knocked out a couple dents on the lid. And he used that thing for like another 4 or 5 years. I think maybe even longer, like 7 or 8 years. I can't remember now, but like it just keeps going. You do need to do a little maintenance on your vents at the bottom. I'll do a video on that. The vents can get a little sticky or hard to adjust as the fasteners get corroded over time. It doesn't mean it doesn't work. It just means, as with all things, it requires a little bit of maintenance, and spraying some WD-40 or some kind of other lubricant on your cooking device is probably not a good idea. But I'll make a video on how to fix that issue another time. Honestly, if I was going to buy another one in 2026, I would definitely buy a Weber Smokey Mountain. But I'll be honest with you, what I would do differently, I wouldn't have gotten the 18.5-inch version. I would have got the 22-inch version so that I could make more barbecue. Thanks a lot for watching, guys. I really hope this was helpful. If there's a question you have about the Weber Smokey Mountain, put it in the comments below. I'll be happy to answer. And if you ended up buying one as a result of watching this video, let me know, because I'd love to talk about different barbecue recipes. As I said, my channel is all about barbecue, dad life, backyard life, and all kinds of things in between. So hit that subscribe button, and I would love to see you in the next one. Thanks a lot for watching, and don't tell my parents I was smoking in the backyard. See you next time.